And Andrew, if we can take apologies and any substitutions we have today.
Convener, my colleague Kirsty's clerk in the meeting today. I'm just here to do the live stream, so if I can just pass over to Kirsty.
No problem, thanks Kirsty.
Thanks, Convener. Got apologies from Councillor Carson and Councillor Stevenson will be substituting, and also apologies from Councillor Linden.
Thanks, Kirsty. Any further apologies? Nope. Agenda item number 1 is declarations of interest under ethical standards. Does anybody have anything to declare? Okay, agenda item number 2 is the digital IT strategy, and Katrina's going to take us through this paper.
Thanks very much, Convener, and good afternoon, everybody. If it's with your permission, Convener, I'd like to just make some opening remarks on the strategy, and then to bring in Susan Laurie, who is our strategy and performance manager, actually completed the refresh of the strategy this year, so is well placed to go through the key points and highlight those for committee. But before I bring Susan in, I'd like to start off, I guess, by highlighting that this midpoint iteration is hopefully now better aligned to the place and the vision. It clearly shows the links to the latest version of the capital investment programme and the national digital strategy, but crucially from our perspective, on pages 25 to 28 of your pack, it now reflects the North Lanarkshire demographics that we need to consider and build upon as we work our way through the digital transformation programme. You can see in section 2 of the report that we consulted widely on this iteration of the strategy, and the final version's been updated to reflect the feedback that we received internally and also from the community groups that we engaged with as well. I'm going to pass straight on to Susan now, but hopefully she'll go through the key points of a strategy which provides a flavour, I guess, of the importance which IT and digital has just in our day-to-day operations, but also strategically for the council as well. I'll just hand to Susan now, if that's okay with you, Convener. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. As Katrina said, this is the midpoint review of the digital and IT strategy, and it's aligned. Its aim was to align it more fully with the plan for North Lanarkshire, the place, the vision, the long-term vision that the council has for North Lanarkshire. And also to achieve that digital vision for a digital North Lanarkshire with digital communities, digital economy and a digital council. So this is quite a significant refresh, and I'll just take you through some highlights in terms of what has changed and what the consultation told us and how that information was used to shape what you see in front of you today. So if I go to the covering report on paragraph 2.2, which I think is on page 7 of your pack, I'll take the first 3 bullet points in paragraph 2.2 together, because it's all about demonstrating, first of all, what were the achievements over the last 3 years. There's been significant work in terms of digital transformation across North Lanarkshire, but it's not until you see them in black and white that you realise the extent of how far-reaching this programme of work is. And that's very clearly laid out for you in terms of the digital communities, a digital economy and a digital council for the programme of work section, which starts on page 29 of your pack. It breaks down your achievements into each of those 3 components. It also looks at the actions that will be taken forward in 22-23 from the programme of work, not just from a digital perspective, but also in terms of how digital enables other large-scale programmes of work across the council. For example, the shared community town and hub facilities, the digital zones, the smart technology in parks and things like that. And all those service transformations that will hopefully make service users' lives much more slick and easier to access council services. So the paragraph 2.2, to go back to that, the achievements also show you that there's been a number of measures of success incorporated into that table as well, and that's just to be able to measure the success moving forward and demonstrate, have we actually achieved what we set out to do. So back in paragraph 2.2, the 4th bullet point there talks about the demographics of North Lanarkshire, and Katrina's also mentioned the local profile that's in your document today, and how much that will help shape the future of digital transformation. and there's a large section in terms of digital capabilities, the usage, the connectivity statistics, which actually tell us what North Lanarkshire's people are all about when it comes to digital, what their capabilities are, what their skills are, how much they stand to gain, and also how much we need to be careful to not exclude anyone moving forward in terms of digital transformation. And the last bullet point there just incorporates the technology and the infrastructure section into digital transformation, which plays a huge part in terms of developing the range of solutions required to enable this transformation on the ground. So those were the key highlights in terms of the changes in the documents in front of you today. Paragraph 2.5 just touches on a light internal self-evaluation we undertook to get to understand what we're talking about with our digital and IT strategy. And it was very clear from that evaluation that there was a very strong approach. It was a clear rationale behind the choice of approach. But you can see from that second bullet point that the danger there was it being deployed consistently and systematically across the organisation. So one of the things that we did this year to combat that, to try and increase that systematic usage and deployment across the organisation, was to increase the consultation exercise, which we reach a far broader scope range of people, and to see what they thought, what exactly did they think, and how did it impact on them. So you can see in paragraph 2.7 that lists the consultation exercise and all of the different groups that were asked questions in terms of the digital and IT strategy, and whether they provided feedback. So the feedback summary is summarised in paragraph 2.8, and I'll just very briefly highlight some of the sections in that. So number one was very much about the demographics. While we recognised the extent to which the demographics and the ageing population would have an impact on the ability to achieve the digital vision, some of the feedback felt it needed to be more explicitly stated in terms of the impact on specific groups such as older people. So the strategy has been updated to reflect that, and programmes like the Driving Digitally Local update report that's on the agenda today just gives you an example of the intergenerational programme that's in place to support older people. But it's also worth remembering the Digital Council aspect in all of this. And the Digital Council and all aspect in all of this, on page 21 of your pack, talks about process automation. So the more that you can automate processes, the more routine day-to-day activities that can be driven out of processes, the more staff are able to actually spend their time, their capacity on the people who need it most. And I think that's worth remembering when you're talking about digital transformation and the impact of older people, is that the impact of digital transformation in one area actually can help benefit and increase resources available for other areas and other groups. So the second bullet point was quite similar in terms of feedback, in terms of all the groups who could potentially be excluded from a digital and IT strategy and digital transformation. So again, that's been more explicitly stated in the digital and IT strategy itself. And it's specifically there, as Katrina said, it's the evidence base to ensure that future service redesign and technology developments are informed accordingly. So number 3 in terms of the feedback was about the accessing of booking of public facilities, and I've already captured that in terms of the programme of work moving forward in terms of the extension of the shared hub facilities in the future to enable greater integrated working across the council and allow public access to these buildings, to book them, to use them for whatever purpose they require. The fourth piece of feedback was actually requested for a glossary to explain the technical terms in more details, and I appreciate there's a lot of technical terms in these, so these have been explained as best possible. And number 5 is really just a catch-all for a few extra pieces of word sentences that needed to be added for completeness. And the 6th piece of feedback we categorised was in terms of just the positive comments. So the strategy itself is set out for you, and it starts on page 13 of your pack. It provides the background in terms of the journey the strategy has been on since it was launched in 2019, the alignment to the national context. What do we actually mean by a digital North Lanarkshire and digital communities, digital economy and digital council? And what does the actual digital vision mean in practice, and the nine principles that underline that, and the service redesign activities that are underway? And as I've already said, the North Lanarkshire residents, the demographics, the local profile plays a huge part in terms of this strategy and providing that evidence base, and that starts in your pack in page 13 of the pack, which is page 25 of your PDF today. And then, as you can see, you've already mentioned the programme of work, which is a huge amount of work heading in the next financial year to just deliver the digital vision for North Lanarkshire in practice. And then obviously the alignment to other strategies and the introduction of the technology and infrastructure section in order to join all of these pieces of work together. And then at the back, we've really just got the governance and risk that underpins all of this work to ensure it all effectively operates in practice. So I wasn't planning on saying an awful lot more in that respect. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can, but in the meantime, I'll hand back to the convener for the recommendations.
Thanks, Susan. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, convener. It seems to be a well written document with a wide higher level strategy. My concern is regarding more the implementation levels, and I'm looking at the impact assessment here, the financial risk, the risk impact, and the various parts in here. Now, forgive me if I missed it. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything involved in this that updated the fact that we're currently sitting within a global silicon shortage, which means that all the equipment necessary to implement these sort of strategies is not only having a scarcity issue, but also an increased cost issue. Also the fact that from what my understanding is, the silicon shortage isn't likely to stop with the easing of COVID. It's actually a problem with actual capacity to manufacture. So we're looking at maybe a 10-year cycle of before the full scarcity issue is dealt with. So I was wondering if there's anything, if I've missed it, please let me know. But if we should have something in this that reflects that there's the danger of increasing costs and possibly missed deadlines, etc.
Thanks, Colin. Susan.
I'm wondering if Grant or Katrina is perhaps better placed to answer that question.
No problem, Grant.
Sorry, just turning my screen back on there. Yeah, like it's a well-made point. There is shortages. There's shortages that we can't necessarily control. In terms of corporate kind of environments just now, we actually feel reasonably well in control of that in terms of the refreshes we've done over the last couple of years. Schools, is a different problem. There is an awful lot of older technology that resides within schools. There is, of course, the promise from the Scottish Government of a device for every child. We've yet to receive the kind of detail of how that is going to be delivered, and never mind how it will be delivered in with the problem that you're just referring to. So organisationally, we will have to plan. We have to look to how we extend the lifespan of some of our kit. To try and fill in some of these gaps. We are currently working to a kind of 6-month timeline for deliveries and buying some of this kit. It doesn't affect all kit, but things like laptops are one of the main issues. Things like desktops, we tend to be still getting fairly readily, 3 to 4 weeks, monitors, etc., etc. So yeah, it does have an impact. We do need to keep an eye on it. We, like I say, corporately just now, we're reasonably comfortable because of where a refresh programme is. It is a risk. We do capture that in our wider risk assessments that probably aren't included within this kind of strategy paper, to be honest with you. But most of the stuff I've been reading has been kind of talking about probably through to about mid-23 before the market starts to stabilise again. So yeah, it's something we will most definitely keep our eye on. And like I say, we may have to adjust some of the lifespans of some of the kit that we would normally work with and look at how we eke that out a wee bit longer than we would perhaps like in an ideal world.
Thanks, Grant. Katrina, do you want to add to that, or?
Just a little bit extra context. I won't pick up on anything that Grant said there, convener, and we're absolutely going to touch on Councillor Cameron's point later on in the agenda when we're looking at the current status of a digital NL programme. But from the strategic perspective, then the way the strategy is being brought together in this iteration clearly has everything in the programme of work specifically linked under council, community and economy. And whilst the particular point here about equipment and chip shortages can affect all of those, the biggest impact is likely to be for us on the Digital Council, and particularly around the digital sprints. And when we get to the report later on in the agenda, we're already seeing that impact, that with being unable to get kits, sprints being delayed. So in the measures of success, in page 32 of your pack, then benefits realised from digital transformation sprints is one of the key measures that we absolutely will be monitoring, and as we already do, reporting on that to this committee or its successor. So I think it's captured at the high enough level that a strategy needs to be there, but give assurances to members that that kind of information absolutely will be monitored and will come back to committee in future. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. Councillor Cameron, does that satisfy what you were asking?
Yes, thank you. If there's already an item in the risk register to deal with that, I'm quite happy with it. It's just it wasn't reflected on the risk section in here, so that's why I brought it up. Thank you.
No bother. Thank you. John Watson.
Thanks, Convener. Can I just come back on the issues around the digitisation programme for the last 2 years, and it's around the FTEs, the full-time equivalents, and now the NLC have paused, in inverted commas, the feedback to yourselves on that with regards to job cuts or savings, as the management would call them. For the last 2 years, elected members, we've been, as a trade union, requesting feedback about roles and responsibilities. Where would PricewaterhouseCoopers find these 600 odd jobs, which I know has been reduced in certain areas? However, we didn't get any response from the management with regards to the full-time equivalents. We didn't get any response to the management from the roles and responsibilities. We get little response with regards to a training programme that was supposed to be in the first year of the programme to train up our members, because as a trade union unison, we were supportive, or are supportive of the digitisation. We understand the need to move on, but surely we would have the right to get information with regards to full-time equivalent jobs that could be lost. Surely we would get the right to the roles and responsibilities. So then you ask yourselves as elected members, why has this been paused? I don't know if you've had that answer, but here's my answer to it. It's been simply because the senior top managers and directors in North Lanarkshire have refused to accept the full-time equivalent job losses, have refused to accept the roles that allegedly, with whatever platform has been used or algorithm that's been used, the senior management team have said no. I don't know if you know that, elected members, but it's important that you do know it. Now, we have met with the management team with regards to that, and we're hopefully working through it. But I think it's very important that you think about because we know that 2 years ago you endorsed the programme and the cuts to that, and that they'll still remain, even though it might be 2 or 3 years down the line as yet before they're enacted. But it's very important that you think about that and maybe ask the questions that we've been asking, because as a trade union, we've not the answers to date. Thank you very much, Convener.
Thanks, John. And obviously, you probably appreciate officers won't come in and comment on that. But as chair of this committee, and certainly, my other role as chair of the JICC, quite happy to have a conversation with you maybe after this committee, or at some point you're available. We'll take up on the points.
Okay,
thanks,
Convener, thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd like to thank officers for presenting this paper today. It's a very well thought out paper, in my opinion. But I would draw attention to 2.5 under consultation and engagement. In that section, it highlights the approach to deployment and assessment and review. The statistics of the deployment of digital IT strategy and assessment and review are quite sort of stark in relation to the rest of the report, and it's just to see what sort of our engagement frameworks are going to be implemented as part of the overall rollout of the strategy, and how we're going to give that information to people that require it.
Thanks, Councillor Lennon. Katrina?
Yeah, thanks, convener. So yeah, in that paragraph, I think Susan touched on this when she was presenting the paper there, Councillor Lennon. It highlights particularly that the strategy as has been approved over the last couple of years wasn't being either systematically deployed or deployed to its full potential. So it wasn't meaning that it wasn't actually there, it's just not completely consistent across the council. And Susan highlighted that we've then, and you can see it in the paper, that we've been regularly engaging with hundreds, between 100 and 150 in most cases, senior officers across the council from all of the different activities and functions, particularly over the last year since April 2021. And then it's some very dedicated sessions to try and understand was there anything in the previous iterations of the strategy that they had particular issues with. Digitisation programme and John Watson's comments aside there, we obviously needed to build that in moving forward. So we've been able to get that feedback, as you can see from the paper and from the accounts across the council, and have built that in. But an important element of this is that back in 2017, 2018, when the business case was being designed and PricewaterhouseCoopers were working with us, at that point in time, every head of service across the council did appreciate exactly what the digital programme and the digital strategy would mean for them, and they did all sign up to it at that point in time. People move on, things change in the council, and naturally what we need to do is to make sure that future versions of the strategy are appropriate. So there has been that big refresh this year, and Susan touched on that, of reminding everyone about what is in the digital business case, not specifically the FTEs, but what are the digital vision, what are the digital principles, what are the service redesign principles. So Councillor Lennon, we've hopefully gone back through all of that as part of the build-up of the strategy, but we'll absolutely, we've got measures in place now, particularly through what we call the OMT, the operational management team, that has those senior managers that I was referencing. There's regular engagement with them now to try and keep the strategy as meaningful as possible for them, and by linking it in as well to the place, the vision and the capital investment strategy that we actually have at this point in time, then it's much more real for people now. I think that's always the danger with the strategy, is that people see it's very high level and it doesn't really apply to them, but of course it does. You know, the digital strategy affects every single area in the council, and we've put a great amount of effort in this year just to refreshing that, to make sure that we get that deployment more consistent going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Katrina. Councillor Lennon, does that answer the point?
Well, thanks very much, Katrina. That fills me with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barclay?
Thanks. Kenny, it's leading on from what we heard from John Watson. It was actually questions I was going to ask at section 5, because the rollout for adult health and social care is sitting in red, but I think it's pertinent more to talk about it here. And I really do appreciate the fact that you, Ken, you said that you would speak to the trade unions out with this and bring it to the JCC. But I think it's really, really important that us as elected members get sight of exactly what is going on. I think especially in adult health and social care, where we did ratify where there would be savings, and that we're in a position where, and I do appreciate that COVID has changed the landscape for so many different things, but I think for the staff within that, especially that sector, the staff within the council, but staff especially in that sector, what they've had to deal with and do over the last 2 years, that really having a wee bit more confidence in the fact that anything to do with where there would be job cuts, is it going to be that there won't be? There just needs to be clarity to give them that assurance that the last 2 years of really hell that they've been through, that there's not going to be, things are not going to get any worse. So I do appreciate that you're going to speak to them outline, but I think you need to speak to the JCC, and it needs to be an open conversation that the elected members are aware of exactly what is going on. We can't ratify things if things are changing and we don't know what's going on in the background. If you understand where I'm coming from on that.
No, absolutely. Claire, thanks so much. And obviously, you're a valued member of the JCC as well. And certainly any offline conversations I have with John or any trade union, I'm happy to link in with you as well, because I know adult health and social care is a particular passion of yours as well. So absolutely, I'll do that, and I'll give you my insurance, I will. So thanks very much, Claire. Councillor Hogg.
Thanks, Sabina. I would just like to make a few supportive noises for the trade union group in terms of their concerns about and worries about any changes to job roles, etc. There's a lot of jargon in IT and digitisation, but it's really just a transition. It's a slow transition. And I would say there's nothing really to be too concerned about. If there's qualitative changes to data collection and processing, etc., it's not going to affect people's jobs as much as they might be concerned. I say this having been a systems manager, having taught privately to all of the senior management on Stena C-Link before they were computerized. So I know firsthand that interface of where there are serious concerns or people thinking they might lose their jobs and then going ahead and reassuring them. And my postgraduate dissertation was in the implementation phase of changing the culture in the workplace. So having been through this a few years back, I would say, given that the qualitative level of IT, almost everyone's using IT or handheld equipment at this point, and those that aren't, it's the training and stuff is pretty simple once you start doing it. So I would give reassurance to the staff, particularly trade unions, that, and I've worked with trade unions in the past as well, and workplace literacies. This is not a problem. It's going to add value to people's skills, and quite often it can lead to people getting improved pay. And I just want to help allay some of the concerns. That's all. You know, we're in a transition phase. There's not a major cultural shift coming at all, not at the moment. And it's slow and it's being phased. And this is a good paper. So thanks to the service for doing this one.
Thanks, Councillor Hogg. I don't see anybody else on the chat bar. So at this point, if we can agree the recommendations associated with agenda item number 2. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is the driving digital locally, and Lynn Gow is going to talk to this paper.
Thank you, convener. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, my name is Lynn Gow. I am the comms lead for Digital NL programme. I'm going to take you through the Driving Digital Locally report this afternoon. So the report provides an update on the work that we've been carrying out through the Driving Digital Locally framework amongst our key stakeholders, staff and elected members. And today I just want to highlight some of the work that's taken place in the digital subgroup, highlight the new elected members inquiry system and the project that we've been delivering for our elderly tenants and retirement complexes to help them get online, and also I'll touch at the end on our digital skills survey. So firstly, if we look at section 2 of the report, points 2.1 to 2.9, the digital subgroup is progressing really, really well. We've now been operational for 6 months, and we now achieved full membership with 2 representatives from all 9 board areas. We've also had a young pupil from Coltness High School join us to give us that youth perspective. And now we're going to be working to approve our terms of reference that was already approved at Delivery Board last June. The group are now being pretty productive, and from the outset, one of the key priorities for the group was to understand the digital provision which exists across North Lanarkshire. So the group developed a short mapping exercise targeting local, public and private sector organisations who were delivering digital services on the ground. And this will allow the group to address any gaps and see what we can do to work together to try and plug some of those gaps. One of those possibilities is the potential for online courses that are available through the Council's LearnNL platform to be made available to some of the community organisations, and I will progress the committee in future reports as we move through that. Also, results from the mapping exercise will also help to inform the emerging digital work stream within the future operating model and how this ties into the work to engage the community on the digital zones, which results were reported back in November committee. The group are also working with the Community Planning Partnership team to develop some content and test the new proposed learning platform for community boards. And as I said earlier, progress on this will be detailed in future reports. The group, as you heard Katrina and Susan speak earlier, the group was also consulted on the digital and IT strategy. And as reps of the digital group, they also took it for wider consultation and they shared it with their own community groups. I think at this point, I'd also just like to advise committee that we're starting to see some successes through the digital subgroup. Lots of partnership working taking place to help support the needs of residents. Some of the groups have been working together to try and gain funding through Connecting Scotland or the Council's own Flexible Digital Fund to try and purchase devices and offer digital champion support. And members of the digital group said that this wouldn't have taken place if they not joined the digital subgroup. And I think that's really good news for such a young group. So I'm pleased to report that today. If we can move on to point 2.10 and engagement with our elected members. So in line with our Digital First vision and as part of the Digital NL Sprint programme, plans are now underway to develop an elected members inquiry system on the new Dynamics platform. The build of this system will commence next week, and after this part's complete, elected members will be invited to take part in the testing of the new system. Following this and any further developments that's going to be needed, training on the new system has already been built into the members' induction programme following the May elections. If we move on to point 2.15 to 2.19, this provides an update on a project that supports our elderly residents within a retirement complex and this was previously reported that we had successfully gained 200 iPads. You'll see in 2.16 that all our devices have now been allocated and there's a really good spread across all 9 board areas. You'll see from 2.17 details of our proposed intergenerational project, which sadly, after papers were distributed for committee, senior management and housing took the decision not to allow school children into the common areas of our complexes, and this is where the intergenerational project was going to take place. They feel that COVID is still quite prevalent, especially in schools, and I'm sure that committee understands the decision taken by senior management and shares our disappointment. I'll, however, continue to work with my colleagues in education in the background to be ready with the project when it's safe to go back into the complexes, and I'll keep committee updated on this. And just one final point for this afternoon, if we look at point 2.20, as part of staff engagement and to support the work of the future operating model, an essential skills survey was carried out just before Christmas. This was done to re-baseline the digital skills of our workforce since the last one was carried out in 2018, which is obviously pre-pandemic. The results will help to inform the Digital Workforce Skills Action Plan for 22-23. Now, we had about 1,334 responses, which was more than the responses we had in 2018, which I think is really good considering that we were all online this time and there was no face-to-face ability to do any of the questions. And early results have shown that 68% rated their digital skills as good as or excellent, and 1,225 said they had actively using Teams now to collaborate in the workforce. A full analysis is going to be carried out, and there's a presentation going to be delivered to trade unions just at the beginning of March, and then I'll report the final analysis and the future report to this committee. So thanks very much for listening this afternoon, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lynn. Councillor Lennon.
Chair, thanks very much. Another positive report for the officers. I find this fascinating. But one question I would have is in relation to Connecting Scotland. It's obviously highlighted here that a number of devices were acquired with that. Do we have a monetary terms sort of what the investment for Connecting Scotland is? And are we looking to try and use the next rounds of that because they're currently looking for applications at the moment?
Do we have that one?
Well, it was 200 and it's 200 brand new iPads. So that was but for across the council, I don't have a monetary, but I can find out and come back to you, Councillor Lennon.
Thanks very much, Lynn. That's greatly appreciated.
No worries.
Thank you. Councillor Barclay.
Thanks, Kenny. Again, yes, a good report. It's obviously the 2.10 onwards up to 2.14 about the elected members. It's something I kind of advocated from the beginning about how that we could link into this. So that, on one hand, I look at it, that's really, really good. On the other hand, I would be really interested in to see how this is going to work. What we can't have is a depersonalisation of a lot of things, is trying to get the balance right between us putting things into one inbox, which sometimes can be a good thing because it then can be directed to the correct person. But there can be other things, and it'll come back to something like social work, where it's an emergency situation or it's a non-going situation where we need to speak to the people we've been speaking to before in order to find out what's happening. So that's where the balance is. Also, to look at this to see be good to see whether the response is directly coming back to us. What kind of response will that be? Will that just be a blanket response, we've got it? Or will the response be specific to the inquiry in the sense of we have moved this on to this particular person? Or the other thing that I had advocated for this at the beginning was being able to look at maybe the register, and something I'm thinking about specifically is when it's roads maintenance, a pothole, for example, where you look, rather than having to go back and say, has that been fixed? Because we all know with the best will in the world, somebody will shout at us because there's a hole in the road, but they won't come back and tell us it's been filled in. And unless you actually physically go and look to see if it's in the road, it means you've got to go to officers and say, has that been done? And officers are great coming back and telling us, but to have a link in somewhere where we would be able to look either under a job number or something like that to say that's in the process of being worked, or it has been completed and the hole has been filled in, or there's problems with this one. That's the kind of thing that might be another step, but to look at this, so and really is to involve elected members in the design of this, because as other than that, or it's what will happen is that people won't use it. They'll still go back to their well-kent people and they'll still say, they'll go to them, they won't go through this. So in order for it work to everybody, if we can elaborate a wee bit more on that one.
Yeah. I think that's why it's really, sorry, convener.
All I was going to say there, Lynn, to Claire, before this paper even was put to print, I've had meetings for several months in regards to this, and I know something you brought up several years ago now, and it's something I'm equally passionate about. And there is that assurance built in that elected members will be critical to the design. I think that contribution you just made, you've sort of self-volunteered yourself for that group whenever it forums. And yeah, we need people on it because our casework is our bread and butter. It's why we come into it. It's to help people. So we have to get the system right. Absolutely. Sorry, Lynn, when you go.
That's
Even
exactly
though you're plugging in at the deep end, I'll say yes, I agree, Kenny, I don't mind.
Okay. Councillor Hogg.
Thanks, Convener. Just to add to Councillor Barkey's comments, I mean, in terms of caseworking and stuff, it really ought to be a combination of emails or a new interface set up. Fair enough, if that seemed to be the case. But the best qualitative human communication is always face-to-face or via telephone. So as long as we don't rule out that, we want this to be personal and we want it to be effective communication. That's always best done face-to-face or via emails to confirm the data. Just an idea, I'm throwing an idea in here when Linda was referring to members of the public and getting people who might not be too IT literate. It might be an idea, whether we could get the funding for it or not, I don't know, but if we're going to get the hard to reach people who don't really use IT much, a drop-in centre somewhere where people can come in and get short courses and training for any MS software packages that they would want, particularly Word. People need to use that for CVs, etc. Pretty important. Might be an idea to speak with the colleges. I don't know what drop-in centres we've got where it's free, but I think something like that would help to ally people's concerns again about any skills, because I know of quite a lot of people who are still non-IT, and it's pretty easy once you just start a walk in through the language and get through it. So might be worth thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely, Lynn. You take them on board, certainly. And again, Paddy, it's certainly something that's in design, and elected members will be playing a role in that. I don't see anybody else in the chat bar, so if you can agree to the recommendations associated to agenda item number 3. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the Business Intelligence Hub, and there is a video with this, and Susan Cloak's going to take us over the report, but we also have Lindsay Smith with us from the Housing Solutions team to speak about some of the housing benefits associated with it. So over to you, Susan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. I'm Susan Cloak. I'm the Business Intelligence Manager in Business Solutions, and I'm the lead for the BI Hub development. So the purpose of the report today is to update committee on the development and delivery of Phase 3 of the Business Intelligence Hub. Section 1 of the report provides the background to the hub and its key components, and paragraph 1.1 outlines how the hub is part of the Digital NL programme target operating model, and it will provide a standard way of working for business information and reporting across the council. The BI Hub itself is introduced as a new capability across the council with a focus on reducing the volume of current reporting, and that whole shift from hindsight to future state forecasting. Shortly, you'll also see a video on the BI Hub itself and the work on the Common Housing Register, the CHR, and as was mentioned earlier, together with feedback from Lindsay Smith from Housing Solutions on the impact of the BI Hub within her particular service area. Crucially, the hub will ensure that we use business intelligence resources effectively across the council, underpinned by data and insight which drive efficiency forward. Paragraph 1.7 details the key components within the hub model itself, which has a core hub and service hub elements. So the BI Hub is not about creating a centralised specialised team. It's to create core and service-based experts with clear links between strategic planning and service delivery, but also to allow us to integrate with other kind of key components, including, for instance, our geographic information systems. So section 2 of the report provides detail on the BI Hub development phases, which have been previously reported to committee. Paragraph 2.6 provides an update on the learning outcomes from the previous phases and some elements of phase 3 delivery. And I suppose I would want to kind of highlight the following. So we've obviously now confirmed use of Power BI as a key tool. And part of that is around the synergy and cost benefits from using this Microsoft product. And it also offers other elements of the digital platform, including M365 and licensing. It has reduced the time taken to process data, and I'm sure Lindsay can speak a bit on this in her feedback moving forward. The dashboards themselves are now much more flexible and interactive, and that ensures that we can keep the data within that system current and relevant as we move forward. I suppose as a bit of background, Power BI is now being developed as a common tool across the wider local authority and public sector environment, and again, that will create opportunities for sharing and integration across that public sector landscape as we move forward. Another thing I would like to highlight is that obviously the BI Hub is one of the key components in the delivery of the Data and Information Management Strategic Roadmap, and this will ensure that not only is our dashboard creation correct, but also that the data which feeds the process has an owner, together with clear audit and data quality processes linked to it, and that's really important when we look at the development of the dashboards. The tools themselves look really good, but the information that's contained within those systems need to be correct, up to date and data quality checked as we move forward. Paragraph 2.8 outlines the highlights from phase 3, and I would highlight the following areas. We moved from a sprint development model to a service area development model, and I think I would have to say that has worked very well for us. It's proven the value within that kind of whole service approach, and it's allowed us to map and identify things like data usage, reporting processes, structures, current resourcing levels, etc. And that gives us a clearer understanding of the resources that we have available and how to deploy them more effectively. We've also further developed our model to track improvements, and again, that model is currently being finalised and it will be applied to the other BI Hub development areas. As I'd mentioned previously, we've focused on Common Housing Register. We've done housing repairs with Housing Solutions previously, and we're now moving in to look at homelessness as part of the development suite for Housing Solutions moving forward. And we're also looking at linking with our GIS mapping functionality, which I mentioned earlier. A key bit of phase 3, and I suppose an even more important bit moving forward, is knowledge transfer. And that knowledge transfer is underway from Agilisis to Business Solutions technical team, and it's included training sessions and individual support sessions. And as I said earlier, that is likely to be one of the main focuses for our next phase moving forward, looking to identify possible skills gaps or learning requirements as we transition through. So the new approach to the delivery of the hub also supports the delivery of the data governance framework and those roles of business data owner and line of business data steward, which were outlined in the Data and Information Management Strategic Roadmap report that went to committee in November. So as outlined in paragraph 2.9, the BI Hub development is managed through a separate contract to the main digital programme, and additional funding has been identified for 2022-23, and a decision on the best approach to the delivery of this, which will be phase 4, is currently in discussion. As I've mentioned before, I think it will possibly focus a lot more on knowledge transfer and upskilling to ensure the council can continue to move forward with the BI Hub development once Agilicis are gone. So that's my update on the report. So we are now going to show a short video which will provide detail on the hub, and in particular the work on the Common Housing Register and Housing Solutions. And then Lindsay will provide feedback on the hub development and within a Housing Solutions perspective. Thank you, Convener.
Convener, I'll just play the video now if that's okay. I've got that set up ready.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm now going to provide you with a short presentation on the Business Intelligence Hub and the dashboards within the Business Intelligence Hub. So what I will do now is I will share my screen and I will take you to my landing page within the hub itself. So hopefully you can all now see this is my landing page for the Business Intelligence Hub. What you'll see, it has my name at the top, it has my most recently accessed reports at the bottom, and then it has a menu down the side which gives me my favourites, my most recent, my workspaces, etc. And what I would say is this landing page will be tailored to whoever it is that's accessing using Power BI and the hub itself. So obviously with their own name, and also with the reports and areas that they have access to across the organisation. So if I click on, obviously as lead for the Business Intelligence Hub, I currently have access to all of the areas, both in production and development across the Business Intelligence Hub. But it's likely that others within the organisation may only, for instance, have access to the production space where all the finalised reports are kept, and then only the services who are currently supporting with development would be able to have key individuals within those areas accessing the development space. So as I say, if I click into my workspaces, you'll see I've got that BI Hub pilot space, production space, test space, and that NLC Housing Repairs, which was our first proof of concept around the use of Power BI itself when we started the BI Hub process. So if I click into the production space, then what you will see here are a list of the reports that are currently available across parts of the organisation or all of the organisation. So for instance, the first one is the complaints report, and that is the corporate performance report for complaints that's available to all those who have Power BI licenses across the organisation to view that performance information around the complaints report. There's also a data protection complaints report. There is a waste missed bins pull-out report and a waste tonnage report, and they were linked to the waste sprint as part of the digital NL process. So if I now go back and I access the production space, the test space, what you will see there is a whole range of reports and dashboards that are currently within development. So there's a built environment reporting dashboard, business grants report dashboard, Common Housing Register, which is the one I'm going to speak about today, and also a complaints phase 3 and work with housing and social care around complaints. So if I go into the Common Housing Register, Housing Solutions report, which is the one I'm going to speak about in more detail. So this is the first landing page for the Common Housing report. What you'll see is it tells me the number of pages that I have here and how I can access them. You'll see at the moment it's quite small, so what I'm going to propose to do is to share this with you with full screen so that you can see more detail within the dashboard itself. So I will just switch to full screen just now. So this is me in full screen, and again, if you look at the bottom, I still have access to that menu of reports. So if I start with the application inquiry report scoring. So this is the application inquiry report. Currently there's a filter on for foster care, but I will remove that, and what you will see is the whole report. So what I've just shown you there is the filters that are available across the top of the board. So there's points and reasons and point score filter, a letting area applied for filter, a house type applied for, housing size and eligibility, and current status. And then in the middle, we have the total view for the organisation. So that gives you all the priority groupings, it gives you the localities across the top, and it gives you the numbers at the side. And then over here, we have the average total points by managing office. So again, a breakdown by those managing office areas. So as I showed you before, if I click on the filter, we'll pick a different one this time, so possibly hospital discharge. What it will give me are the number of houses application inquiries linked to housing discharge, and what you'll see is there's 3 in Airdrie, 3 in Bellshill and 4 in Coatbridge, and then 1 spread across, so a total of 14, and then the average total points by managing area. So I will just click that filter back off again. Again, this is us going back to the full view. So what I can also then do is click by letting area, which are much smaller areas. So if I, for instance, let's pick Brandon. That will give me all the application inquiries in relation to Brandon, and as you'll see, most of them are in that Motherwell area, but again, broken down by category and total and average points by housing area. So again, I will click off on Brandon and it goes back to the full report. I can also do it by housing type. So mid-terrace, lower mid-terrace, again, multi-storey. So again, if I pick multi-storey, it'll give me the inquiries in relation to multi-storey, again, across the areas. And again, you will see where you expect those concentrations of applications to be. It then provides it by housing size eligibility. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. So again, click on 3 bedrooms and it gives you the breakdown by 3 bedrooms. And click off again, and then by current status. So that current status is formal offer accepted, listed, offer made, offer pending, or suspended. So if I go into formal offer made, again, shows me by priority group, shows me by area, and shows me by average total points by the managing office. So that is the application inquiry report. So I will now move into the housed report. So this is the housed report. Again, similar layout, similar set of filters across, but slightly different. So size, locality, area, property type, size allocated, housing eligibility, waiting list criteria, and waiting list position. Again, it does it by area, broken down by areas, and broken down by categories. And here we have a line graph which shows the tenancy start dates and the numbers. And again, you need to pay particular attention to the scale at the side, as it does it by 0 to 40. But again, if I hit specific points, it will give me those particular numbers. So again, a breakdown on that particular point on that particular day or month. So average points awarded by area and average time between application received locally and tenancy start date. The added feature in this particular dashboard is the mapping facility here. So if I click on this, I can extend it. And what it does is it gives or plots the housings allocated by locality. So again, very easy view, either as a whole authority area or within one particular area. And again, if you go on it, it will give you the postcode and the locality as allocated. So again, a good geographic representation of house that's being let or housed across the area. Again, what I can also do is if I pick on a particular locality or area, so say I pick on Coatbridge in the north, what it will also do is it will change not only change all the figures in the graph, but it will also change the map itself. So again, it will just show me this locality area, which I can then zoom in on. And again, it will show me the individual postcode and the offers that are made within that particular area. So what this means is that not only can you get a view across the whole of the organisation and see the house report as its total across, but you can also then break it down by locality, which means that each individual locality manager can see the information that is relevant to their particular area. And that's true of all of the elements of the dashboard. It allows the locality managers and others to tailor the views dependent on a variety of those categories, so localities, size, property type, waiting list criteria, etc. So the next report is the offer report, and again it will look very similar, and we've tried to keep the look and the feel of the dashboards as similar as possible. So again at the top we've got waiting list, property area, offer status, offer rejected, offer withdrawn, property size, property type and special property. So again, locality broken down by localities and broken down by areas and broken down by categories. So general, homeless, reprovisioning, transfer, aspirational, etc. We've then got the offers by property type again, so multi-storey flat, upper block, upper flat in a block of 4, ground floor, upper maisonette, etc. And then we've got the average days between offer match date and offer date itself. And again, within this one, we also have a pull out, and this pull out specifically looks at the offers that have been rejected. And what this will do is allow managers to see if there are any particular trends in a particular area around those offers that are being rejected. And if you look here, we have a number of offers rejected in the Muirhouse area, and I would suggest just by their layout that looks as though they are possibly within the multi-storey flats, within the towers, within that particular area. So if I click back to that report, again, it can be filtered by individual area. So again, I can click on Bells Hill and Motherwell, and it will just home in and show me the particular figures for Bells Hill and Motherwell. And again, the map changes just for Bells Hill and Motherwell itself. So again, that whole facility that allows managers and others to see their particular area, but allows heads of service, etc., to see the totality across North Lanarkshire. So the final one is the offer housing report summary. Again, elements of this are still in development, but what it gives me is the offers made year to date and the houses and those housed year to date. And it gives me in the centre the total offers made by year to date within a category. So that's homelessness, so 34.9% homeless, 30% general, 15% for a transfer. This is the offers. Reprovisioning 9%, aspirational 6%, aspirational 4.6%, and then it's housed again. So you can see the relationship between total offers made and housed. So that is the reports that we have developed in relation to the Common Housing Register. I'll just come off full screen. I hope you found this demonstration helpful. And what I will now do is I will pass over to Lindsay, who will be able to provide you with some information on the benefits in relation to the ability for Housing Solutions to access this dashboard information and how it has supported their work within Housing Solutions. And I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, for demoing that video, and thanks, Susan, for that good demo there as well. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay Smith, and I am the Business Development Manager within Enterprise and Communities. And what myself and my team do is we support services like Housing Solutions to improve and develop their processes and performance. What you've just seen there has really come together from a really good partnership approach being taken to developing the work we've seen to date. And that's been in conjunction with Susan and her team, myself and my team, and our systems integrator as well, providing that sort of technical expertise for us going forward. And we've really come together effectively to develop this project and allow us within Housing Solutions to create that more automated reporting that we so badly need within our service. And it's allowed us to mirror our existing statutory and both our operational reports as well. We've already gained huge benefits from this and expect those to continue as we continue to develop this project. We now have data transferring automatically from our housing and CHR system into Power BI. This data is also automatically summarised to meet our needs based obviously upon the rules that we've applied to that data. And as you can imagine, that removes the need for us within my own team to manually create and analyse reports each month. You can imagine the time spent in doing that is quite significant, and what that really allows us to do is look more at the analysis of the data rather than focusing the time on extracting and creating performance reports on tools like Excel. Hopefully what you've seen there through the demonstration is that the system is really user-friendly, as well as automatically summarising the data. Again, like what you've just seen, it shows it in such a visual way that the mapping is really key. It really lifts the numbers off a page that we're used to looking at and shows it in a map sort of view. And that sort of thing really does change the game for us within Housing Solutions in the way that we view data and the way we analyse it as well. And ultimately, as is clearly evident, this is reducing the time taken for us to produce the reports on a monthly basis and removes that monthly repetition and that cycle that we go through each month to ultimately produce our performance. Some benefits we expect to see from this is ultimately improved performance across our Housing Solutions areas. So we expect this to increase because, as Susan mentioned in that demo there, managers will no longer need to wait until the monthly performance reports are produced and then almost retrospectively look back at performance that has happened in the past, which means areas of poor performance can be flagged up earlier, areas of good performance can be flagged up earlier, and that allows us really to move from that reactive reporting that we've been doing, looking back a month or some cases 2 months or even a quarter, and allows us to start to become more proactive in terms of how we analyse our data and how we look forward. And ideally, we want to get into a place where we're predictive, we're in predictive analysis and we're predicting trends that might happen in the future. And I can only see huge benefits for us within Housing Solutions and the operational teams within the housing offices as well. Interestingly, housing offices will be able to see each other's performance, which Susan mentioned in the video as well, and that can only help to drive up the overall performance and create that bigger picture for everyone, and they can see each other. So I imagine that might create some friendly competition within the offices as well, which is always a good thing. Other benefits that we are seeing and expect to continue to see is connected data. So we'll be more able than we ever have been before to join up our performance information and gain that sort of better holistic view of the service and how the service is performing. We can join indicators such as our homeless applications coming in. We can see the effect that they're having on the homeless waiting list versus the number of lets or the number of properties we're actually giving out to homeless applicants as well. So allowing us in a much easier way than what we do just now to see that overview of a service has got to give us huge benefits going forward. And I think, as Susan mentioned when she was going over the report at the start there, this links to the work, that connected data links to the work that's already been done to support the delivery of that data governance framework as well, connecting our data that we've got and using it to the best of our abilities is a huge step forward for us. I could probably go on and on about the benefits, but I think they're probably clear to see, and hopefully the ones I've picked out there are clear as well. And just like to say, overall, we've been really excited within Housing Solutions to be a part of this project, and it really, given the breadth and depth of performance information that we produce, both from a regulatory point of view, but also from an operational point of view, the benefits we've gained and will continue to gain are huge. That's probably all I really wanted to say, but thanks for having me here today and for your time and listening, and myself and Susan are happy to take any questions, convener.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, convener. Just to say thank you to Lindsay for her commentary there, and particularly to Susan for a very detailed presentation. And I'm delighted to see what is basically a proper corporate systems overview, a management information system. I'm assuming that as soon as, say, one case for applying for on the CHR is typed in one page. It's feeding into the overall analysis. So it's working a bit like a sort of graphic user interface table data capture that goes to a central database that does the analysis. That's how relational databases work. And I'm just delighted to see the progress here, because what you're getting, as was said, is an automated process of analysing KPIs, data. And if someone's working, say, in the north or the south, and they want an overview of the council, it gives that instantaneous analysis of the overview, which should allow information to come back to councillors to say, look, there's no bias in the areas here. Everything's working and tuned as it should be. So I think it's great progress, and I'm very pleased to see that indeed. I've done this sort of thing myself many years ago with spreadsheets where someone puts daily stats in, it goes then automatically to weekly, automatically to monthly, quarterly, and annual. These things happen behind the scenes. It's a very good way of using IT, and it's good to see this being done. So great progress.
Thanks, Councillor Hogg. Councillor Barclay.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Again, a really good report. I think it's an excellent tool to be able to use. I think there'll be, within areas, you'll know the areas, the problem areas of places that are hard to let. But I think what this will do, and Lizzie, you can, and both yourself, just can tell me if I'm right on this, is that there could be other areas that you think are fine, but then is that going to bring out problems? And it's where you take it from there. It's because this is kind of cold hard data. There could be short-term problems because of it could be anything. But it's where do you go from there? How do you use this constructively?
Yeah, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Barclay. I think for myself and my team, this information, we spend a lot of time just now producing performance reports on spreadsheets. And the huge benefit we will see is we will be able to be reviewing and looking at this data, analysing this data more proactively than we ever have before. So we're more likely to be able to get into the depths of that and spot those trends occurring, spot those areas that we maybe have been thinking that are okay or assuming that are okay, but we'll actually be able to spend that time and invest that time now in looking at potential trends or upcoming trends. Like I said before, that predictive analysis, monitoring what's gone before to predict what might happen in the future. It's got so many opportunities for us to really start to delve into areas we haven't been able to do before. I mean, overall performance across housing solutions in comparison to other local authorities through our performance returns that we submit each year to the government, our performance is good. I can only see this pushing us right up to towards the top of that league table against other councils, and I think we've definitely got a great tool here to help us do that.
Just a supplementary, very quickly, and I think that's really great. I think, but it's also to make sure that, because raw data doesn't tell you everything, and you could have a KPI that actually is not very good, but there are a multitude of reasons for why that KPI isn't good. So it's making sure that the shiny of isn't this wonderful? We've got all these figures at our fingertips. I could hardly say that there. But it's still making sure that the other reasons that are not shown in the raw data of why maybe there's been what would be termed a poor performance is actually not really, because in the scheme of things, it's actually a great performance considering everything else that we take into consideration. I'm always concerned a wee bit with KPIs because if it doesn't take that, rather than being a morale booster, it can be an actual a detriment to morale, because if staff are constantly looking at something that is a red figure, because in the scheme of things it falls into that category, that's not great for morale either, when it's actually there's very little they have control over. in that aspect. So just that's my only comment on it. But no, thank you very much for all of that. That's really worthwhile.
Thanks, Councillor Barclay. Councillor Dog.
Thanks for your indulgence, Convener. I forgot to ask earlier one question. Given this is an off-the-shelf package, does it allow us to add new fields? That means if we find there's more qualitative data required to be captured about cases, etc., can we add a new field in the future in order that we can update it? But it's certainly a great intelligence package.
Councillor, it's not just an off-the-shelf. Power BI itself is the tool. We can create and manage the data in any way we want at the back end. It gives us a tool to choose fields, to move fields, to change data very easily because the data has been pipelined out of a system. So we've got full flexibility with it. It doesn't tie us down to any particular type of report, and that's the good thing. We can change it for our business needs moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Paddy. So, colleagues, if you agree to the recommendations, thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the financial overview. Over to you, Katrina.
Yeah, thanks again, Convener. Can I just kick off by saying, hopefully that last item brought an element of the programme and the tools that we've been building on and investing in to life. And just picking up what Susan was finishing with there, and the scope that we actually do have to be able to tailor it to services, because that basically is what digitisation is all about. So this is the standard report here that we provide to committee on digital NL progress and the spend thereon. This paper's presenting the position as at period 10, and committee have previously seen similar details at periods 4 and period 6. So if I jump straight to table 1 at paragraph 2.1.1, you can see the current status of all of the live redesign activity, as well as whether that's currently better or worse or the same as we advised in committee in November. Paragraph 2.1.2 is showing that half of our planned redesigned activity is proceeding as we had planned, 4 are running behind, and 3, including adult health and social care, are categorised as red. And red means the financial benefit, or the FTE that was in the business case, is therefore at risk. Paragraphs 2.13 to 2.16 provide reasons for those ambers and reds, and that's kind of touching back on Councillor Cameron's earlier question, and largely elements of that are related to procurement delays or dealing with the pandemic responses. Also picking up on one of Councillor Barclay's earlier points, I'll draw your attention then to paragraph 2.1.6 on health and social care, and this reflects last week's decision to reverse the savings value that's associated with the employee reductions in adult health and social care, and again given the current need for increased levels of staff and the pressures that service has been under. Before I start covering off on finance, it's important to highlight that our contract with Digitisation is due to end in April. We've got, I think, one of my colleagues earlier, can't remember who, probably Susan, one of my colleagues mentioned earlier that we've got a significant transition process underway just now to ensure that our development staff have got the skills that are needed to keep the programme running. But we can't ignore the fact that from May onwards, we will have significantly less people available to do that technical build of any of the requirements that are coming out from the live sprint activity. And on the back of that, then we will absolutely do a full refresh from year 4 onwards to take account of what a sprint redesign activity will actually look like with less people available to do the build. Turning to the finances now, the financial position is summarised in Appendix 2. We are still within the overall budget approved by policy and strategy, but you can see that we've, since last period, we've increased our spend on capital, and that's largely to try and maximise the remaining months that we've got with our Agilis colleagues. Our revenue spend projections conversely are lower than we advised last period, and paragraph 4.1.1 saying that that is linked to that change in health and social care from last week, and a postponement of some of the planned work that we've got on RPA by moving that into next year. Finishing off then on savings. And again, this is touching a little bit on John Watson's comments from earlier on today as well. Paragraphs 4.1.6 to 0.19 are highlighting that, you know, the challenge that we're under and the challenging sprints that we have delayed achievement of the targeted savings coming through from the full business case. I mean, as you can see, there's about £1 million of that is needing to be carried forward into next year. At the bottom there of paragraph 4.1.9, that means that when you take account of the 6 million reversal approved last week, then next year's financial target, which includes that 1 million, is 3.2 million. And intentions for that really, picking up on what was said about heads of service not agreeing with the figures. Where we're going to go with that is that there's a paper going to the next delivery board and thereafter to the corporate management team, seeking agreement on how heads of service believe that we can actually deliver that 3.2 million from next year, and taking account of all of the tools that we've got in the best way of actually getting non-financial efficiencies out of the digitisation programme as well. So back to you then, convener, really just for the recommendations and any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Katrina. Does anybody have any questions on the paper? Councillor Barclay?
No, sorry, Kenny, it's like a clear roadshow at times. Apologies. It's just to check out on the figures for the savings and the FTE. This work was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers. Is it and I know taking COVID into consideration, but are the figures that PricewaterhouseCoopers providing, are they widely inaccurate? You know, are they way beyond you know, the reality of really what is achievable? And if so, has somebody gone back to say, you know, that really that their report really didn't come up to scratch? You know, it's trying to dig a wee bit deeper, and I know that maybe a lot of this will come out further because Kenny has agreed, you know, through JCC and that. But I'm just thinking, why are the figures so inaccurate? Can we get a wee bit of clarity on that one, Katrina? Thank you.
Katrina, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Barclay. So when PwC produced the information, they produced what they thought were potential savings for every head of service area based on their work in redesigning services in other councils. So there was a massive, I guess what they called it, a service design blueprint. So I'll just pick one out of there. So in environmental assets world, there was multiple workshops held with the head of service at the time, and then the senior staff at the time, to look at all of their processes, and it linked back to that activity analysis of what's back office, what's the initial customer inquiry, etc., etc. So it is a very complex set of tools that came together, but ultimately every head of service was presented with on the back of your workshops, here's where we believe, based on our experience of working with other councils, you have got scope to use the automation, better use of data, some of the tools that we've been seeing through the committee over the last year and a half. So here's how we think you could reduce your FTE. As I said in response earlier to John's comment, every head of service actually signed that off at that point in time. They went through it in detail and agreed that it was reasonable. But we have to acknowledge that was at that point in time. The council changes all of the time, and it restructures, and the FTEs again were rebased again last year. But there's absolutely no doubt, hence why we're taking a paper to the next delivery board, that we're in a completely different world today, and that a lot of the assumptions that the PwC FTEs were based on probably don't hold water. That's absolutely the case for areas, like some of the big areas like adult health and social care, where there's a massive requirement, although automation will absolutely help that service, and they're still committed to doing that redesign. We cannot at this stage think about how you could reduce the FTE when they're under an increasing pressure to increase FTE. Hence why we're going back and actually going to work with every head of service and say, so based on where you are today and based on what we know, what is actually a reasonable way forward. So it's not so much a snapshot in time, it's a different world. So there are a couple of heads of service who, as we've been working with them over the last year in rebaselining, have said, oh, this looks particularly challenging for me, but I think we also have to remember that they were indicative values, and what we've always said to this committee, to the delivery board, to the corporate management team, and every time we meet the trade unions, is that they are indicative FTEs, and as we start every single redesign area, we'll look at the establishment at that point of time, we'll look at what they're currently working on, what their processes are, and we'll then actually work our way through to see what is possible to bring in tools and how a service then may wish to reconfigure its role. So it is a complex process, but hopefully we do provide sufficient information every time we come to committee to give elected members assurances that it is being actively tracked and monitored. Thanks.
Thanks, Katrina. Councillor Barclay.
Just a wee supplementary. Given, Katrina, that we actually paid PwC a lot of money to do this report, are you confident that they even at that time that they got their modelling right? You know that, you know, would you be confident in using them again? I think that maybe that's where I'm asking the question, and I know it is really difficult because we are in a different world. We are in a totally different world. But I think really it's looking to see was employing PwC to do that report worth it? And even if you take COVID out the equation, you know, do you think that they were so wrong on it, that their modelling really wasn't right for us as a council? Because sometimes, although where there's other councils they may have worked at, we are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, with complex needs and over such a large area. Really was you know, would you consider employing them again? Or maybe that's a difficult one to answer, because obviously procurement, and you don't want to say no, they were rubbish. But it's just that they seem to be so widely off beam on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I would say is I think we've learned a lot about ourselves. So we absolutely didn't have the resources and the capacity to do that business redesign process, the activity analysis, etc. at the time, and they did that very well. Obviously, when we did go out to procurement, there were other organisations, and this was before my time, so I'm looking back on the information that's available. There were other organisations that we could have hired, and our processes and I guess our checks on them being the best organisation identified that at the time. So yes, some of the FTEs and the heads of service have said they agreed them then, but maybe with hindsight, you know, that they didn't hold the assumptions for any length of time. So I think we've learned more about ourselves and the processes and how other checks and balances that perhaps we should have put in place as part of that process, because obviously we did interact with other councils that they'd used, there were site visits, and the panel at the time were confident that that organisation could deliver what they needed. They did deliver an awful lot of things that you still see coming through the committee today. You know, the work that we've done on the Business Intelligence Hub and the Strategic Data Roadmap, they were all pockets identified by PwC. So we absolutely did get value from the money that we spent with that organisation. And it was always, as I just said in response to your initial question, the FTEs were indicative, and we were always then going to track them. Had the pandemic not come along, if the FTEs were so wildly out, then perhaps we might have taken a different approach. But there's really, I think, no way to distinguish between were they wildly out, or is it really just that we're in a different world and services have had to react and actually start deploying technology quickly, whether it was right for them or not, because that's just where we were. So hopefully that gives some comfort, Councillor Barclay, that we do think we got value from the spend.
Thanks, Katrina, and thanks, Claire. Colleagues, if we can agree the recommendations for agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 6 is the community benefits paper, and Jennifer will take us through this.
Thank you, convener, and good afternoon, everybody. My name's Jennifer Lees, and I'm the Business Partnership Manager in Business Solutions. And for the past nearly 2 years now, I've been working with our business partners, PwC to a lesser extent, Agilicis much more so, on the community benefits that both companies were required to deliver as part of their contractual arrangements with the Council. So at the last meeting in September, you received a presentation on the community benefits showing some of the outputs and the services that are being delivered. And it was agreed that a final report should come to this meeting with, as far as possible, the equivalent monetary value of those community benefits. So I'm pleased to present this report to committee this afternoon. Our community benefit monitoring framework was approved nearly 2 years ago in May 2020, and that made provision for the inclusion of direct costs at face value, but also an equivalent monetary value where the business partners were using their own staff or resources to deliver community benefits. And that was calculated based on the work rate multiplied by the actual hours deployed. And looking at the community benefits and the values we've achieved and secured over the past couple of years, this report confirms that the position for PwC is the same as reported in September, because there's been no requirement over the past 6 months to draw down further services from PwC to support the digital work packages that we're currently delivering. In terms of Agilicis, however, and mindful of the company contract termination date later in the spring, there are significant developments that have been made, and I'm pleased to provide the updated position. We have 5 students on placement now with Agilicis, and these are progressing really well. 2 of the students, they're all from New College, Lanarkshire. 2 of them are doing cyber security, 2 of them are doing web development, and we've got 1 doing cloud development. Their placements kicked off on the 24th of January with a 2-week induction programme that comprised a meeting with Agilicis's chief executive, the partners and key staff in the company. They then completed mandatory compliance training around GDPR, information security, health and safety. And this is the type of mandatory training that we all have to do when we start work in any new organisation. So it's given the students a real insight into what it's like in your first few days with a company. They also participated in training in advanced presentation skills, creating and maintaining a LinkedIn account, and they've also undertaken a scavenger hunt whereby they were required to find out various facts about Agilicis in terms of the company's values, the company's history, the company's work streams, who the company's currently providing services to, and also in that scavenger hunt to reflect on their own personal ambitions and what they hope to get out of their placements. We've got regular dialogue in place with their college lecturers to make sure that the placements are progressing as per everyone's expectations, and also if there are any issues, we can get those resolved quickly and prevent them growing into anything that might hinder the students' actual learning outcomes. And the placements will conclude with a showcase event where the students will put those advanced presentation skills into use and deliver a presentation on what they've got out of the placement, what they've gained from it, and how they see it benefiting them in the rest of their studies and their careers ongoing. And we'll also learn the winner of the scavenger hunt, and Agilicis are putting up a £200 prize for the winner of the scavenger hunt. The other community benefits are well in hand. We're in the process of rolling out the second tranche of the Avado data analytics training to local businesses and third sector organisations, and we're getting an encouraging response to that so far. The closing date for applications is next Friday. We did offer the Avado data analytics training to student applicants who were unsuccessful in getting a placement at New College Lanarkshire for this academic session, and the response to that has been less encouraging. So what we're now looking at doing is making those Avado modules available to the college as part of their academic syllabus for 22-23 in business studies and marketing type courses. You're familiar with the Getting Work Ready modules. Linda showcased these at the last Transformation and Digitisation Committee. They're progressing well. We're getting good feedback overall. And the final area of the community benefits from Agilicis is around that community learning piece. And if you recall, members, they have downloaded all their own in-house training materials to Learn NL, which means that they are accessible for us as employees, yourselves as elected members, and we're in discussion with the Driving Digital locally colleagues to look and see, can we make some of those relevant learning courses also available to our community representatives through the public access computers in the libraries and so on. And that picks up on Councillor Hogg's previous question around just that raising awareness and basic data literacy skills. In terms of the actual monetary value, this is described for members on page 80 of the report at paragraph 4.1.1, and you'll see that the total cost of the Agilicis community benefits, taking into account direct costs that the company incurred and also that equivalent monetary value that I described, is just over £177,000. The Getting Work Ready modules came in a wee bit less than we originally anticipated, but even though the value of Agilicis community benefits is more than 3 times what the company quoted in their original tender submission to the council. Agilicis have also committed to continue to deliver the placements with New College Lanarkshire once their contract terminates with us, so in the next academic session, and that leaves a lasting legacy of their time here in North Lanarkshire. If we do get spin-off community benefits and progress on that lasting legacy that I've described, we'll continue to report that to Council through the Digital Skills and Inclusion Working Group. And happy to take any questions, Convener. The recommendations are on pages 75, 76 of the report, and I'll hand back to you for the recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Convener. Can I say thanks to Jennifer for an excellent presentation, and particularly the information about Agilicis. It's fantastic to know that some of the young people from the area are getting this experience. Having taught in a college and worked in private business, there's a massive contrast between going straight into industry and private situation where you've really got to think on your feet, learn the culture and learn problem solving quickly to fit in with a team, and doing generic training with a college where you learn various principles that you've then got to apply in a context in a business case. So I think that experience is going to be really invaluable. I would say 1,000 times better than, not to knock a college because I used to be a college lecturer myself, but the contextual, meeting the people in the workplace that are doing the stuff and busy doing that sort of work, and so specific cloud development, for 2.8, 2.7 in the paper, cybersecurity, web development. This will be definitive in their learning experience, and hopefully they will be able to use that in further professional stuff. And completely, this is qualitative, fantastic experience. So congratulations to our staff for getting this done.
Thanks, Paddy. I'm sure that's taken on board. I appreciate the comments, the staff. Thanks very much. Don't see anybody else in, so if we can agree the recommendations for agenda item number 6. Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is the strategic performance framework, and back over to you, Katrina.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. So I've I've presented our service performance to committee on several occasions now, and the detail that was submitted in September of last year was part of the revised strategic performance framework pilot that was being tested at this committee plus 2 others. You elected members will remember that the feedback from this committee and the pilot overall was positive, so that framework's been fully rolled out, and this is the way that information will be presented to committee 6 monthly from now on. So our latest performance results are summarised in Appendix 1, and they will enable members to assess their progress against our ambition statements and also our overall service delivery targets. Paragraph 2.3 highlights whether a higher or a lower figure in those details is preferred. It also demonstrates that green is good, blue is better, and red is something that's worthy of closer scrutiny and investigation. From a COVID perspective, our service doesn't have any indicators within the national data dashboard that was built, but the report does highlight that technology deployment and development had its part to play throughout the pandemic response. If I just finish then with the appendix, there are no obvious areas of concern, and our RAG status is categorised as either green or blue. The comments field at the far right in the appendix provides further information on each of the indicator, and paraphrasing, largely they show that performance levels across the suite have been steady and good, although they do highlight that, that there have been increased demand in some areas, but with effort the service has managed to keep a good level of performance. And I wasn't planning to highlight anything in particular, Convener, just to answer any questions really.
Thanks, Katrina. Does anybody have any questions on agenda item number 7? Councillor Hume.
Thanks, Chair. Just for clarity, in the appendix, when does the 21-22 target end and move on to the next period?
Katrina.
They'll be linked into the financial years, so 21-22 will end at the end of March, Councillor Hume.
Thanks, Councillor Hume. Thanks, Katrina. I don't see any further questions, so we can agree the recommendation for agenda item number 7. Thank you. Agenda item number 8. Grant's just going to take us quickly through this.
I got it quickly there. So this report is on the procurement of a consolidated Microsoft licensing contract starting on the 1st of April 2022 for a period of 36 months with a value of circa 9.27 million. The contract comprises licenses for Microsoft Office, the education license equivalent, server and cloud licenses and consumption. It also takes opportunity to align the previously separately procured MS Dynamics licensing using delivery of the customer relation management tool and implemented via the Digital NL programme along with a wider digital platform solution. This results in a co-terminus date at the 31st of March 2025. With regards to Office licensing, the Council has previously used the E3 variant in its corporate environments. As part of this procurement, an assessment of E3 components, other utilised tool sets, market direction and evolving Council requirements were taken against the Microsoft E5 variant. A user intelligence group supported by third-party market consultants reached conclusion that a change to E5 licensing now, taking advantage of a 3-year ramped introductory model from Microsoft, represented the best value for the authority, maximising use and functionality contained within the enterprise agreement. In particular, the inclusive Power BI function will aid the development and growth of the Council's Business Intelligence Hub and use of data in general, and obviously quite timely because Susan was giving us some good information on that earlier on. Telephony integration will aid the development of hybrid working across the Council, whilst inclusive threat and vulnerability management tool set incorporate Microsoft Defender for antivirus simplifies our environment and ongoing maintenance. Within education, the academic variant A3 is recommended for renewal. However, with the inclusion of a security add-on function, which standardises across the corporate and education estates. The procurement itself was undertaken as a mini competition via the Crown Commercial Services RM 688 framework. 2 companies were involved in the mini comp with a recommendation to award to Phoenix Software Limited, who achieved an overall score of 90.76%, following the recognised most economically advantageous tenders process. Within section 4.1, the financial impact is discussed. In particular, table 2 within 4.15 identifies budgetary pressures, and table 3 at 4.17 indicates percentage increases when baselines against current rates. These are large increases. However, they are reflective of market testing and do present opportunity for product consolidation and efficiency. Section 416 states that the budgetary pressure for year 22-23 will be provided from the General Fund and HRA. The subsequent years have been discussed with Finance and will be built into Finance's medium-term plans. Community benefits put forward by Phoenix are contained within 422 and focus upon commitment to schools, commitment to engagement with schools and to youth groups. This does look quite small in comparison to overall value, but what has to be remembered here is that the majority of the value here is Microsoft licensing, and this is a reseller that sells on. And that was a very quick run through, Councillor.
Thanks, Grant. Questions, Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, thank you, convener. I've got a few. Now, I'll start with the simple one, which is that this just using when you're looking at the awarding the contract, is it the same standard split between value and monetary value? Sorry, I should say, and other value, as in that we use for other things. The other question I have is given that the Microsoft, we're basing this off of Microsoft, and that Microsoft is an American company, and there has been volatility in other American software providers. I was wondering if the contract has an exit strategy implemented into it, where if we lose the ability to use the cloud software, etc., that we have the ability to exit the contract and move over onto something else. I understand it's only a 3-year contract, but given some of the legal actions, I should say, that have been taken against large American software firms at the moment, I was looking to find out if we have an exit strategy in place if something should happen in that direction. Thank you.
In terms of the how we work out the most economically advantageous, it's done on a 40-60 split here. You'll find that in the appendix on page 10, appendix 2. So quality on 40%, price on 60%, and quality then has a number of other subheadings that sit within there that aren't within the report. In terms of your second question, that's a big, wide question, to be honest with you. I'd probably then ramble on about. There is always within contracts abilities to do get-out clauses. However, we have to remember the scale of involvement that the council has with this kind of product set, both in terms of how we use it on our PCs, use it on our desktops, use it for our server operating systems, BI Hub, Dynamics. The vast majority of things that were spoken about today all rely upon Microsoft underneath there somewhere. And that is no quick disentanglement. It would be a number of years being able to do that. However, the vast majority of organisations such as ourselves, certainly in the public sector in the UK, all would be in the exact same situation with us. But this is again bought through RM 6808, I think I said, Crown Commercials, and it always has wrappers round about it for being able to extract yourself from the contract due to non-performance or due to other outstanding issues. So yeah, I would be confident to say, yes, those capabilities are there. The ability to actually do it in reality, given how embedded we are, would be significantly more challenging as it would be for just about everybody.
Councillor Carlton, you want a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's sort of the answer I was expecting, that there would be an exit, but it would be difficult. It's why I have always been sort of concerned about a reliance on Microsoft, but I've had my say on that in previous committees, so I won't go back onto that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cameron. Don't see any further questions, so if we can agree to the recommendations for agenda item number 8. Thank you. Agenda item number 9 is a contract award. Does anybody have any questions in regards to item 9? No. So if we can agree the recommendation for item 9. Item 10 is a contracts awarded below threshold. Does anybody have any questions on these? No. If we can agree to recommendations for them. Thank you. Item 11